Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we are diving back into our Condemned series by Allison Ames. Now, if you haven't listened to the first two books in this series, those links are going to be available down below in the description section. Once you've listened to the reviews, come and join us as we dive into book 3, which is called Tormented. Riker wakes up and he's completely naked. He has something around his neck. It's pitch black. He smells raspberry, which is like this sweet smelling scent, but he also smells those harsh smells as well, like sweat, death, the normal on Dragon 25. His head is hurting. He's trying to remember the last thing that happened, and then he hears a voice. It's a female voice, and they say to him, listen, if this was about taking you out, that would have already happened. And then he lets out another roar. The woman has blonde, long hair. She's attractive, but she's not really doing anything for him because he just kind of sees her as a problem. So apparently the mission was supposed to be that, I guess, before he decides if he wants to go discover the other planets in the system, he was supposed to try and get this weapon that 223 has, which is really deadly. And Griffin was supposed to help him as well. So they were scoping out a place, trying to get this weapon, and that's all he remembers. Doesn't remember anything after that. So he doesn't know how he got in this dark hole. So this woman, she has his axe, and he gets into the position to fight because he's not chained to the wall. He just has his thing around his neck. So he gets in the position to fight, and he winds up pulling her hair because he was going to chop it off, but it was a wig. She's a brunette, and she looks fierce now. Now this gets his blood going a little bit, right? And then we find out that she's a council operative. She's been sent down to Dragon 25 to get that weapon as well. And we already know he hates council and everything with it. So they wind up fighting, and he gets a little injured in the fight, but then someone shows up, and then everything goes black. We switch to the operative's POV, which I love. And her name is Jade Lakatesh. And we find out that she was sent there to obtain this connector. She had found it and broke off some pieces and buried it. So she knows it's just buying time. She knows eventually they're going to, find it and put it back together. But that's just giving her some time to pretty much find a way to complete her mission. So when they wake up, because now she's, I guess a prisoner now, they're in this transport that is what they use to take prisoners to whatever their destination is going to be on this planet. And she already knows, because she's had all this intel about Dragon 25, that the padlock is on the outside, so there's no way for them to get out. So there's a broken link in her chain, and so she does tell him, if you help me break it, we might have a shot. Well, he doesn't trust counsel. He tells her when she speaks, she sounds like a robot, because she does believe whatever counsel tells her. And she believes that what she's doing, what she's been called to do, is going to make it better on New Earth. And he is just kind of like, I don't know if you're a robot or if you're like that good of a liar, So we also find out that she has a tracker as well. There's that nanotechnology that has a detonator. So if she doesn't complete her mission, she's at risk of it detonating, as well as whoever's around her. So they're traveling along, and they get to a place where they can hear 223 and his gang. So we find out that 223's real name is Benjamin. They said the last name in it. I just forget what it was, and I didn't write it down. We find out that he was a scientist that worked for council, and they had him testing unwilling victims. This is a story that Jade has been told, and that's why he was sent to Dragon 25. Well, they apparently didn't think that he would have survived, but he did. He thrived. And also, you can't look at his record because apparently back on New Earth, a lot of stuff is redacted, which to me lets me know that is not the full story. But she just sees it as, council told her this is what it is. He's a threat. We need to take him out. That's why he got sent away. That's that. So he has a problem with council. And again, they thought he was not going to thrive, and he did. And so what he's now done is he's been making weapons all this time. So he first started shooting down the shuttles, and he's been building and building and building, which is where we are now, where he's now built something that can take out a mass set of people. And they know that he wants to come back to New Earth to seek revenge. So that's why they sent her to come in and get that weapon. So they start hearing the banging, and he tells them, he tries to find out where his connector is. If they don't tell him, he's like, I'm gonna unleash my men on you. So now the gang of 223 is rocking this prison on wheels. And we find out both of them are butt naked, and he's getting kind of hard because he can't focus on her. He's focusing on her, the stuff she says, it turns him on, but it's this is not the time to get hard. But yet, your body does what it does. So he's trying to control himself. It's a good thing it's dark and she can't see, because otherwise, oh my gosh. So he eventually agrees, and he breaks the chain, and then it starts sounding like the latch is starting to come off, like the door is starting to rise, and he's like, oh my gosh, they're gonna get us. So she gets free, then he gets free, which he didn't think she was gonna do. He thought she was gonna leave him there. But she didn't. Then they feel it rocking again, and then all of a sudden it stops. But then they hear that you can tell that a dust storm has started. So they fled, and a boulder has hit this prison container thing. So they're like, oh shoot, what are we going to do? Because they're not, they could die being trapped in there if a boulder comes, especially a direct hit. They're done for. So they're trying to cover, and they're pretty much thinking, oh shoot, we're screwed. So they're trying to find a way to get out of this container type thing. And during this time, they start having conversations. So she's talking about his scarring. She sees his tattoos and things like that. And we find out that Griff did a phoenix tattoo on him. Griff is this artist, poet type of thing he has going on. And he's very much holding on to the fact that, Griff is still alive, even though she's supposed to be, emotional, well, non-emotional. it doesn't really take full hold of her how much things affect other people, right? Because they kind of taught her to be a robot, which makes sense. If you're going to be a whole assassin, they don't want you being all, feely when it comes to human life. You know what I mean? They want you to be able to take out something without an issue. And I guess, again, that's why she sounds like a robot, So another boulder falls, and it lands on top of this container that they're stuck in. And they're hoping that it's going to open up a space so they can get the heck out of there. He makes a comment about, how Pretty Face doesn't, make him, do anything out of the ordinary. Like he used to be softer until they were taken. So she, of course, it's like, well, who was taken? And he doesn't say who. He just says they were taken. They were murdered by your council that you work for. And also during this time, there's she's attracted because she you gotta remember she did see him earlier, so she is attracted to him, and she's feeling the way he talks. It's very rough, but she likes it. It's weird how they do for each what they do for each other. All of a sudden, Riker hits the back of his neck, and it feels wet, and then he starts feeling like he used to back in the day when he would get drunk when he was on New Earth. And now stuff is coming out of his mouth a lot easier. So he thinks he's thinking these thoughts, but everything he's thinking, he's saying it out loud. So she notices, because there's some light that came in with that boulder coming down. And she's like, "Are you okay?" And he's just like, "I'm fine," but clearly she can tell he's not. He's been stuck by something. And he keeps talking. He's telling her how he wants to fuck her. He's saying how he wants to taste every inch of her, like all kind of stuff. So she goes and checks the back of his neck. And while she's checking his neck, he starts sucking on her tit. And she was just like, "Oh my gosh, like, would you stop?" But she liked it, because his words were already getting to her. And he hadn't even said these type of harsh things like, "I want to fuck you." He hadn't even said that yet. So this was really turning her on, and it was confusing to her because she wasn't used to it. So she knows what it was that stuck him. It was a male species that did it, because the way he was reacting, he was going to be okay. He was just going to have a really nasty headache once the venom left out of his body. And so everything kind of goes black for him. Even though he kept trying to say, "I don't want to go to sleep, I want to go to sleep." He's like, "I want to fuck you." And she was trying to find out, like, what the heck? And she was also trying to see if she could get more information out of him about who they were, but he went out. So he wakes up and he remembers the stuff that he was saying. He asked her how long he'd been out, and it's been like a few hours. And it sounded a lot worse outside, which means the dust storm is getting worse. And they talked a little bit. She didn't bring up fully what he said. And then another boulder fell on top of the container prison. And he kind of heard it coming, and he grabbed her and he pushed her into the corner. So now that they're up against each other, girl is loving this whole thing. She didn't want to admit it at first, but she was absolutely loving it. So this is when we switch back to her, and she admits that she did like when he was sucking on her titties. And for the first time, she felt like, "I want to live, like I want to experience." And so she let him know, like, "I want it." And so then they have this nice heart fuck. And it's a really great scene to read. He finger fucked her, and then he fucked her, and they just came hard. It was this great scene. So then afterwards, they went back to their places. Like, there was no cuddling, there was no kissing, there was nothing. They just went back to their places, right? It was just a lust-filled moment, no connection, no nothing, even though it did feel it, but neither one of them is going to admit to that. So before he can grab her, because he hears another boulder coming, it hits, and he couldn't get to her in time, and looks, and she's rolling away. Thankfully, she doesn't roll out. She actually winds up helping him get from underneath where he was stuck under. And then when he looks down, he sees that she's chained him to the floor with one of the manacles. So he didn't even know that they were there, but clearly she did. And now he's pissed. He was like, "You fucking bitch. Like, you're going to leave me?" He's like, "Why did you even help me if you're just going to leave me to die anyway?" And she had made a weapon that could get him out. So she left it down there for him to use. But she was like, "I need a head start. I got to find that weapon." And she's like, "If I see your friend, I'll send him towards you." And I was like, "Oh my gosh." So, I mean, at least she gave him something, but I guess she figured he was going to try and stop her. So, I get it. It's fucked up, but I do kind of get it. Because you got to think, she's very, robotic. Like, it's just logic, logic, logic. That's all she sees. So, you're still a threat. Yeah, y'all just fuck, but you're still this threat. I also meant to tell you all about this in the previous scene with about 223. So the last jet that came, well, I'm sorry, the last shuttle that came down, he had restored it, and he's got it to where he could possibly take it back to Earth. He's got it that close. And so the fact that he has his weapon, he has to get the connector to get it working again. But he has everything in place to where he can go back to Earth and blow up the council, which means it's also going to blow up, innocent people as well. But at this point, I don't think he cares anyway. So even though she had, chained him, he still watched until he could see that she had made it safely over. Like, he still didn't want to see the girl die or anything like that, or the woman die or anything like that. He still wanted to see at least, she got out safely. So then we switch back to Jade, and she goes to the place where she had hid her clothes, boots, stuff like that, which allowed her to blend in. So she goes to 223's, one of their caves, and she doesn't see anyone. So she's knocking on different doors, doesn't see anyone. Finally, she's getting ready to walk out, and she runs into someone. They have a fight. It isn't that long. She winds up, actually, the guy took himself out because she was, questioning him about where the gang was. He wouldn't tell her. And she was like, "If you don't, I'm going to take you out right now." He's like, "Well, that'll be a better fate than I would ever get if I betrayed 223. And he literally throws his neck into her knife to kill himself. So I was like, good grief. So then she goes through, she's fighting, she's killing. She hears screams of women and men, and all of them are getting RAPED. It's just awful. And so she takes out quite a few, and she wanted to leave at least one so that she could get information. But after she had took out, I think it was like 3 or 4 people in there. And that was a really good scene to read as well, that fight scene. And the person that she was going to keep alive falls down because guess who's there? Riker. And she's a little terrified because she knows payback has arrived. She looks at him and she's like, "Why did you do that?" He's like, "Because I don't trust you." He's like, "And you might run off again." And she was like, "That was my only lead." You know what I'm saying? But the way she talks, it's like the way when you read it, she makes me think about Sheldon from Big Bang. No, not Sheldon. She makes me think about Amy. When Amy first was on Big Bang Theory, how she was very robotic. That's the voice I hear. And he calls her robot girl. And she does not like that. So he had handcuffed her to him. And when he thought she was trying to rub up against him, she wasn't. She was getting the key. So she got the key back, freed herself, but she didn't run away. She told him that she wouldn't. It seems illogical for her to do it. She decided she was going to stay around. Hopefully, she can get more information out of these captives. And so at that point, they got to get supplies and things like that. So she thinks, okay, I'll stay with you, help you with them. And that works. So she's not going to run away. She did, however, find a thing that he had made for his wife and kid and had been discarded somewhere there. So that was kind of weird that she had found that. But she gave it to him and she told him, I figured this is something that might be important to you. But of course, when she says it, it's all void of emotion. This would make such a great movie. Oh my gosh, this would be a wonderful series. So it's a treacherous walk that they've got to make to get to this cave. They've given out food and drink once they get there. And Riker was talking to the people, and he says about he was a part of the resistance. And one of the prisoners is like, his name's Rufus. He's like, you were part of the resistance? He was like, I was too. And so there's another woman there. Her name's Marika. She has a friend. There's a child there. It's a good, probably like 7 or 8 people that they rescued. And there's a young kid named Rafi. He actually took out one of the 223 gang. He helped Jade when she was fighting, And he says that 223, yes, he was a scientist that worked with the council, but he used to do really dangerous experiments. And apparently, one of his experiments that he was doing is one of those things where, like, if you hug and touch on other people, like, it could give them a slow death. And apparently, council knew about this, but they had never told him. Well, he didn't know it at first. So he was still very loyal to the council because he felt like that was his only family. And I think where he went a little bonkers is when he found out. So at first, there was this agreement between 223 and the council. The council would send 223 people that he could experiment on or do with whatever he would like, And I was like, ooh. So I don't know. It's so many different stories about what that council. We know they're no good. But you see how, especially when Jade describes them, how they can twist, they leave out certain things so they don't appear as bad. They want to appear as if, no, we're trying to help the world. You know what I mean? Not we're sick and we need power and we don't care how we get it. So this is, of course, when he starts bringing down shuttles and getting materials. And now he's gotten a shuttle that can fully function good enough to get him to Earth. And he's now created this weapon that's more destructive than anything they have on New Earth. So Jade is hearing all this information, and she's realizing that everything she's known has been a lie. They only wanted to destroy it because her mission wasn't just to destroy the weapon. I think they wanted her to destroy everyone on Dragon 25. So that way, guess what? 223's gone. Whatever they were learning and doing out there is done for. So the council people are just absolutely horrible. And it's a lot for her to digest. You got to think, if this is what you've known all your life, it's like kind of like, when people are in cults, they've known certain things, especially ones that they've known their whole life. That's what they know. And then you have to have the realization that everything you've been taught was a lie. That's a heck of a blow to any person. So she's like, I need to take a walk. So she's like, I'm going to go survey the rest of the cave. And Riker's like, there's no exit. She's like, I know. And she still left. And she goes into the shadows. So Riker goes to search for her. He finds her digging, doing something. He can tell it's some type of bomb, and that she's created with materials that they have, and she's putting them in different places. And he asked her, you like, what are you? No, she was like, why are you looking for me? I don't need a keeper. And they have this little back and forth conversation, and she lets him know that, you know, even if you think you're not a good person, you still are. And he was kind of like, okay, where's that coming from? She's still reeling. She's mind fucked from finding out that that council had been sending resistance fighters and their families to Dragon 25 to 223 to be slaves and whatever else he wanted to use them for. So she jumps down. He sees where she's hurt herself. She did a miscalculation. She's like, I just did a miscalculation. She scraped her scalp. She's bleeding. She's like, it'll stop. And it's like, he loves her strength. At the same time, it frustrates him because he's like, you still feel pain. But she acts as if she doesn't feel pain, And it's what she's been taught to do. It doesn't mean all of a sudden that just stops. It's a learned behavior. So you got to learn how not to do that. So then, of course, they're talking back and forth, and he's like, "Are you trying to fight?" Because she's thinking that's what he's trying to do. He thinks she's trying to do that, and he's like, "You just want me to put my hands on you," and she goes, "I dare you." So then, of course, they have a hard fuck, and right after they finish, Rafi comes looking for them. And he's like, Riker, and they call her assassin. he's like, are you there? So real quick, they pull up their pants and they come around the corner, and he tells them Tyson, which was one of the prisoners, he's taken some supplies and he's ran off. And they're like, we got to go find him. So initially he had said no, like, Jade, you stay here, I'll go look. Then she was like, no, you stay with the people because you're better with them. And then they decide they're both going to go, but then that worries Rafi because he's like, are both of you going to come back? And that did something to her because she had never had someone want her around. And she vowed right then, she's like, yes, I will be back. I will protect you. So Jade and the kid Rafi wind up having a conversation. We get a little backdrop on him. He was an orphan. He used to steal because they didn't have enough food. And he eventually got caught. He got caught a couple times, but that last time they sent him to council, and the councilman Reeker tried to RAPE him, and he took the guy out, and that's what got him sent to Dragon 25. But he feels like he should just let the councilman do it because when he got to Dragon 25, it was 100 times worse, and it was with different people. I'm like, oh, poor boy. Oh. So that, of course, made her feel bad, because she was listening to this as well. But she told him, you didn't do the wrong thing. You never stopped fighting. She's like, no matter what. She told him she too had been an orphan. Um, and that, she'd been told so many half-truths, and that's why she had made the decision to become an operative. You know what I'm saying? Because she didn't have any family, and she thought she was doing something that was for the betterment of New Earth. So, this is when she does tell Rafi, I said it a little earlier, but she tells Rafi is the first person that she tells what her real mission is. And that is that she's supposed to basically blow up all of Dragon 25. And he, of course, is looking at her like, what? But she tells him, I'm not going to go through with that. She told him to keep his eyes open because there's likely someone else that's going to come in to basically finish the job. And so she told him about the nanobomb that she has in her, and that, that once she completes her mission, or if she doesn't complete the mission, it's going to go off. And then she hears, "What?" from behind her. So Riker, this is his first time hearing this stuff. He's pissed off. So they leave. They go off into the storm. It's awful. And he's like, "We got to get off of here. Like, it's just too dangerous. Like, we're going to get killed out here." But she was like, "You don't know if the other, 223 people, if they're out here, if they're out here, we need to be out here too." And he's like, "Yeah, but if we get killed, we're no good. You know what I'm saying? We can't protect the people that we just left either." And she's like, "Do you want to bet the lives of your friends on that?" And he's like, "Listen, I don't have a crystal ball. All I know is that we got to get from out here until it eases up, and then we can come right back out." So they go into this cave. He's honest with her. He says, "I can't believe you didn't tell me about, her real mission." She's like, "Why would I tell you?" She's like, "I'm not going through with my initial mission, so why do I need to tell you?" She was like, "I'm just trying to make sure that no one gets hurt." She's like, "I'll sacrifice myself, you know?" And he was, of course, like, he didn't want her to do that. Um, she went back into robot mode and that pisses him off. And he says, no, she says, "I hate when you call me that. Like, stop calling me that." And he's like, "Well, you keep going into that mode. That's what I'm going to call you." And he doesn't want anything to happen to her. And it's not an easy thing for him to say or for her to hear. So they're just at an impasse with that. And so then they hear a noise, and then they smell something really awful, and they duck off in the corner, and he got his axe, and he's ready to strike. It was a T-ghost, and thankfully it had already had a meal in its mouth, so it just walked past. It didn't come in the cave. So they looked out with that. She, of course, had never seen one, so she was like, "What is?" And he had to tell her. So then she was ready to leave. He didn't want her to go. Um, he also told her, he didn't want her to sacrifice herself. He's like, "My commander's woman, Ava, she's been able to deactivate that technology. And he had talked about the trackers that were in him. And he's like, "I'm quite sure she can do the same for you." And her thing's like, "Yeah, but that's only if we can find her. If we don't find her, that's not an option." So, but it was nice to hear that someone cared. It was starting to sink in a little bit more, like, okay, this actually feels nice having someone care. So then it was also a thing about her knowing, like, it's not going to be easy for her to trust, because she said, "Look at all the trust that I put in to the council, and they lied to me. So he told her he understood. And then, of course, they wind up fucking again. So they talked some more, and they were about to fuck again. He wanted to go slow, and he actually kissed her. So this is the first time he's done that. And she doesn't really kiss people. And it freaked her out, because she was like, "Is he thinking about his wife? Is he trying to replace me with replace his wife with me?" And so she bit his lip. And he, of course, was like, "What are you doing?" She's like, "I'm not your wife. I'm never going to be her." And it pissed her off. And he's like, "I know exactly who you are." So then they had this whole rough fuck session. So then he's like talking to her all dirty and stuff. And then he starts fucking her slow again. And she liked it. So it was just a whole mess. But it was a great read. Riker knows he's in trouble because he feels way more than he is supposed to. So afterwards, he asked her if she was okay. She didn't answer. She doesn't say anything. She cleans him up, but she still doesn't answer. So he says it to her again. "Are you okay?" And she says to him, "I'm not as cavalier about dying as I appear to be." And so he, of course, goes on to tell her, like, "You matter, and she's like, she really doesn't want to die. But she is okay with dying if it means it saves innocent people, you know? So she thanked him for his kind words that he had said to her earlier. And his focus has got to be, but she told him, your focus has got to be on getting that weapon from 223. You know, if they can save her afterwards, she's like, okay. She's like, but she's not betting on it. She wants to focus on the mission at hand. And then she hears a loud boom, and then someone's coming in the cave. And so they jump up with their weapons, and they're back in striking position. It's Tyson. He's weak. And we find out why he had done what he'd done. He was not trying to go and give intel to 223. They were able to find out from him that he has two daughters. They're not biologically his, but when he first got to Drag of 25 in one of the camps, there was a woman named Luna. She was pregnant, and they became really close. And basically, at that time, she was pregnant. She already had a daughter, and he took on the role of being a father, and then they got separated. So he got sent to the camp where, RAPED and heavy labor, and then the other places where they take prisoners for target practice. So that's where the daughters are, and he's trying to get to them. So Jade's absolute when she says, we're going to help. I am going to help you find them. And apparently they're not terribly too far from like where a camp is. So Jade's like, fine, we'll take you there. We're going to work out a plan. They head out there. Seems too quiet. Everyone's on guard. Tyson's getting restless. And he's trying to get to his girls. So while they're trying to make sure everything's okay, he yells out Melody's name. So they wind up having to push his ass down. And I'm just kind of like, why would you yell that out? Like, you want to, I get the thing of you see them, oh my gosh, I understand that. But what if you yelling out could mean that these the captives shoot them? You know what I mean? Like, why would you take that risk? I just didn't understand that. But that's what he did. And we see Griff is a part of this camp. Not as one of the guards or anything, but he's been captured. So we find out what happened to Griff. He had gotten knocked out. He says he doesn't remember anything. He just remembers waking up in an alley and then getting captured. He doesn't remember anything else. And he thought that Riker had left him and went off for some reason. Holes in his story. Jade's picking up on this, and she's not trusting him fully. And then apparently he overthrew the guards because they had only left two there. And he basically, I guess, had just overtaken them. So Griff notices her and finds out she's counsel, and he looks a little like, crazy at Riker. And he's like, she's not like the other people, blah, 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 blah. So then they walk off, but she could still hear everything that they were saying. So Griff was really happy because he saw the way Riker looked at her. Like, he had never seen Riker react that way to someone. So he was happy because he was like, oh my gosh, like, basically you open your heart up again. He was happy for his friend. Riker was downplaying it. Was like, yeah, we fuck, but it's not going to be anything. She's got a whole detonator in her, and we can't be anything because, she's not someone you would keep. And that broke her heart to hear that, I don't think he meant it as harsh as it sounded, but she heard it and it hurt her. So she goes back over to the guys, and Griff is actually really hurt really bad, and he needs like some type of crutch to walk. So she went and made him one. And I think, one of the girls is named Melody. I can't think of the other one. That's Tyson's daughter. And then their mother's called Luna. So we find out Luna got taken to the last pool that were taken to go get used as targets. So she was taken first. And so then the first thing that comes out of Jade's mouth is, I'm going to get her. And he was like, what do you mean you're going to get her? And she says, just like I said, I'm going to get her, you know? And he got upset because he thought she was trying to leave or whatever. He doesn't know she heard that conversation with Griff. She tells him, I'm going to go and try and find the weapon. If I find the weapon, I'm going to try and find Luna and be on my way. So he's of course trying to figure out, like, okay, where is this coming from? And she tells him, I heard you. He's like, you heard what? She said, what she had heard him say. And he's like, it didn't come out right. She said, I think it came out exactly the way it was supposed to. He was like, in all honesty, though, it's not that, how do I say it? It's not that he doesn't think she's worth it. It's more so like she's intent on doing something that could, right, be her demise. How do you build something with somebody like that? You know what I mean? Which I get what he was saying. It is harsh as fuck, but I do get it. I think especially after the loss of his wife and his unborn son, I could see why, of course, he doesn't really want to open up. He doesn't want to open himself up to that type of pain again, So when you got someone who's willing to go and end themselves, even if it's for a noble cause, right? Even if it's to save other people, you're still allowing yourself, opening yourself up to pain. Even though we know opening yourself up to love, that's always going to be the possibility. But that's hard for her to hear because clearly she cares, right? So that's kind of hard to hear from the person that you care about. She eventually decides to stay, though. She's, says it makes more sense for her to stay, help with the different people, and get everyone back to safety. So they're in line. They're heading back, and the old man, he's trying to hold up both the kids. But he's not old and frail. It's just that he's weak. It's you got to think how long they've been there and malnourished and tortured and all kind of stuff. So he's really weak. So Riker went to go get one of the girls, but she was scared because he's so big. So, he probably makes her think about the guards. So Jade was sweet, and she came up and she talked to the little girl, and she actually helped to make her feel comfortable enough to hold her. And so she held one kid and he held the other. So then Jade starts questioning Griff. And he, of course, is like, what are you doing? Give me a third degree? And she said, what you told Riker, it couldn't be true. She knew he was hiding something. She just wanted to know what it was. Of course, he didn't tell her. He was like, I'm one of the good guys. And she's like, I'm going to keep my eye on you. She's like, and she told him, if you put these people in danger or Riker in danger, I'll take you out without hesitation. He just smiled and was like, I wouldn't expect anything less. So by the time they reach the cave, Riker has decided, you know what, he's going to stop being afraid. And he is going to go for what he wants because he wants Jade. So as they're walking towards the cave, there's an attack. Two of the prisoners or captives, we'll call them that, they got killed. I don't remember. I don't think we ever learned their names. It's still sad though. They get taken out that close to some safety. So sad. So then Tyson goes to the ground with his daughters to keep them safe. Griff, I don't know where his ass was, because it's really hard to see because it was like a dust storm going on. Riker screams out he's okay. He smells burnt flesh. It's one of those laser weapons. And the two guys take Riker, and it's two of the guards. They round him up, and Riker lied and was trying to say he was a guard, and he was saying Jade was like one of the prisoners. That she was a tester, and the guys are like, "Are you sure?" Like, cause like she's too pretty, like to be a tester. Or like, I'm gonna make sure I have my way with her before we, throw her away to the testing experiments. So she's playing the role of like damsel in distress. and they're kind of falling for it. And then one of the guys is he starts to catch on and think like, yeah, I don't think they are, because he didn't know, Riker didn't know where they were going, because he had posed the question, are we getting close? And the dude was like, if you're a guard, you would know. And so he turned his gun on him. Well, when that happened, uh, shots are fired, the two guards are killed, and this person says, oh, keep your hands where I can see them. And the person says, good to see you again, Jade Lakatish. So the guy is an operative named Caleb, and he's almost as good as she is. She's like the best operative out there. And we find out he's been infiltrating 223 to get the device as well. So he's the backup person that she didn't know existed, but she had a good feeling that the council was going to send another person there to make sure that it got done. They have this conversation back and forth. Caleb reveals that apparently some operatives have been able to get the codes to the detonators so that they could flee council's rule. And she's like, okay, do you have the code? But he's still very much in robot, very much all about council rule. Council rules everything, so nothing else really matters. He feels like these people are scum. When she brings up the kids that will be hurt, he says sacrifices have to be made. So just very non-feeling. So then shots ring out, and he was acting, well, let me say it correctly. He was looking between the two of, before the shots happened, he was looking at Riker and Jay's reaction to each other. And he was just kind of like, oh, you have feelings for this felon, And then the shot went out, and it was Griff. So he shot the guy in the leg. The guy knew he was outnumbered, so he just ran off, and they didn't catch him. And because he knew they were going to try and take him down. So he did get away. So then they wind up going into a cave chasing after him. And the guy Caleb, it's so quiet in there. It's like such a contrast, because outside you got this dust storm loud, then inside deathly quiet. And inside, Jade's in there as well. And what's his name? Riker had fell for a trick, and Jade is actually the one who winds up falling through this hole. And it looks like she's about to be buried alive, but her hand is still out, and the Caleb guy runs away. She's thinking she can balance it out. If she can get her toe up, she can work away with her toe. She can figure out a way, if he can pull her out real fast, he'll be able to save her. But she's like, keep talking to me, and then she was talking a lot, and then she's like, I really shouldn't be talking. I need to try and conserve my energy. But she wanted to hear him talk because his chitter chatter kind of, calms her. He then asked her if she wanted to hear the story of what happened to his wife and unborn child, and she told him I'd be honored. So he tells her his wife's name was Sarah Lynn. The child was supposed to be named Archer. They were going to name it after her father, who I think had died the year she was born. And told her everything, how she initially wanted the commander first, and then how he got her, and then how he had joined the resistance and put a strain on the relationship, because she wanted security. And what she saw was when he joined the resistance, they had to move around more. The rations weren't as much. The stability that she craved, she didn't have anymore. And so it put a real strain on their marriage. But then once she got pregnant, it did kind of bring them back together. They were both really excited. And then a call came in about, them, council going to kill a village of people. And when they left, they captured their loved ones and trapped them. They put him in a room, made him watch, via TV. He had to watch her get RAPED'd, tortured over and over again. And they cut off the screen right before the guy was about to slit her stomach. So awful. I mean, geez Louise. So then Jade was kind of when I get out of here, I'll find each and every one of them and I'll torture them, you know? And sure enough, time passed, and she was able to get her toe up, and he was able to pull her out. And of course, his first thought was, I'm never letting her go. So she winds up taking him because she knows different places in these caves because of the different intel that she got and the different exploring she's done herself. And she knows there's a special place in this one where there's like waterfalls, the sand, it looks like black diamonds everywhere. So they get naked. They're gonna, you know, take a shower basically with the waterfall. It's a shower technically. And he tells her that he's falling for her. He says, I never expected that. I never expected to love anybody again. And he's like, I know him. He knew it was freaking her out. And he said, I know I'm freaking you out. But he just wanted to be honest with her, And she's like, but you can't. You can't fall for me. All this type of stuff. But he's like, it's too late. It's already there. So she didn't say that she loved him back or anything like that. But she didn't want to ever leave him. And the only way she'll go away is if he wanted her to. So that was more than he had even anticipated on hearing her say. So then they get back to the cave, and Marika tells Jade some important information about where 223 is hiding. Marika knows how to get in and out of the caves, and Jade thinks jackpot. So Jade and Riker have more conversation. We'll get a little bit more backdrop as to why she became an operative. She was supposed to be a breeder, but because she was sterile, they moved her over to that section of being an operative. Actually, what really did it was she had took down 2 guards at like a really young age, so they clearly saw her potential. She did tell him that if love was what she was feeling, then she was falling hard for him. While they were talking, one of the kids came up and told them that the wind had stopped and it was quiet. So then they went and they did some recon, and while they talked, he told her if she wasn't happy or if they didn't accept her into the community, the settlement, that Ava and Commander Hunter, I know they call him Valdez, but I like Hunter, um, that if she wasn't happy there, if they didn't accept her or anything else, like they could leave and they could go make their own settlement, whether it was exploring other planets or if they were just going to make their own settlement. He was like, you are a part of my family now. So they come back to the cave and get mind-blowing news. According to Griff, his wife and son may still be alive. Mike freaking dropped. I did not see that coming. that I just didn't expect that to read that. Griff had found that matching necklace, which is the one that Riker had made for Sarah Lynn and himself. And of course, Riker is flipping out, and Jade has to try and calm him down. And now he's headed to talk and interrogate Tyson for more information. Riker tries to get more information out of Tyson, but it doesn't do too much. He doesn't give up too much more. He's upset because he knows he has to let go of Jade, and he doesn't want to. Griff comes to talk to him, and he feels awful. Riker wants to move tonight, even though it's risky. He just doesn't feel like he can wait anymore. So then Griff goes in to talk to Jade. She already knew that, Riker was going to want to move tonight, and she was prepared for it. And she just kind of had come to the conclusion she's going to do whatever she can to make sure he has a life with his wife and kid. And Griff is kind of like, I don't think I could be that selfless. And she says, well, then you've never been in love. She feels like she's gotten used to the idea of her death, and if her death means Riker's life, she can do that. That's a hell of a way to feel about somebody. It was hard for the smaller ones when they left. Rafi tried to be indifferent. You know what I mean? When Jade and Riker got outside, Riker was like, you can still have a new home in the new settlement, all this type of stuff. But she's like, nah, I don't want to do this. Let's just focus on getting your family back. She wouldn't even let him touch her. They get to the 223 hideout. Riker goes. He's going to try and get the prisoners. So Jade's with Griff. she winds up cuffing him to the wall. He was pissed. And she's like, this is how it's got to be. She did give him the key. And she gave him the bombs that he had to put in as well. And said, she told him it'll give you enough time to do what you need to do, but this is my destiny. And she runs off. So she gets to where Caleb is. Caleb's holding the weapon. He's got his hand on the trigger. He's helped 223 with some upgrades to this thing. So now if he takes his hand off the trigger, it blows up everything. So he's got to keep his finger on it. So his plan is to die a hero. He's mad at the council. He feels like, if he does this, they'll finally see his worth. He rants a lot about the fact that, he was never fast enough, never good enough, and all this type of stuff. And she had figured out that he had requested to be on this mission. So clearly he did want some type of a teammate situation with her. I think he liked her, is what I think. He knew she was going to be there, and I think that's why he wanted that mission. She tries to talk to him, and she's telling him, there's another way. You dying isn't going to do anything. All it's going to do, they're going to burn your record and then be pissed that you destroyed the weapons. Like, that's it. There's not going to be any more meaning to this. She's like, there's another way. I can help you. And then she sees a laser pointing at his back, and she lunges for the weapon. So Riker's with the prisoners. He's trying to calm them down so they won't be scared. And then he sees a woman named Lena, who was the sister of someone he knew back in the Resistance on Earth. And of course, she doesn't look the same after everything she's been through, but she has the same eyes. And so he starts calling out Sarah Lynn and stuff. And that's when she was like, Riker, and he asked about Sarah Lynn, and she told him the truth, which was they actually did die in a massacre that was done before they left New Earth. So they never made it to Dragon 25, and it was almost like they had died all over again for him. But then Griff popped up, and he's like, what are you doing here? And he saw the cuff on him, and he knew it's Jade. She had cuffed him. And he's like, oh no. So he took off because he's going after her. He's like, if he knows if he loses her, he's not going to survive it. Riker is trying to get to her. He's like, hell of high water. He is going to get her. She's with Caleb. He's telling, what did he say to her? I forget. Caleb had said something because he was like, where is, your friend, your felon? You know what I'm saying? Like, you think these people care about you, but they really don't. So she's fighting off everyone because she's trying to keep Caleb alive because she needs to keep his hand on that trigger. So then she sees Riker, and she was like, oh my God, it hurt her because she knew that meant that his wife and kid, they were really gone. But at the same time, she was happy because he kept his promise to her. He told her he'd always come back for her. And he said, I'd never leave you. It was super beautiful. So they get to fighting. She winds up killing the prisoner 223, Benjamin. And she did get stabbed in the process. They took out a lot of people. Riker killed a bunch of people trying to get to her. Caleb shouts out the code, the deactivation code she needs, and she's looking like, what are you doing? He says the code again and tells her, you got 59 seconds, And he says, I didn't think it was possible to have someone care about you. He's like, but being that he was willing to risk his life for you, he's like, I'm not going to take that away from you. She's like, you can still make a different decision, And he's like, nah, this is where it ends for me. She tried to tell him where he could go in the cave to possibly survive. But it still looks kind of grim. So they finally get out. Barely. They make it out. And she hurt her leg. So they make it back to the cave where everyone else is, with the new captives. Well, they're free now. And everyone's looking at her because she's been out for a while. So everyone was like really worried about her, and it freaked her out, um, because she's not used to people caring. So it did freak her out a little bit. Um, he had carved her a thing that had two warriors. It had a male and a female back to back. It was super cute. She loved it. She apologized to him. She's like, I'm so sorry. Your wife and son are gone. He's like, they're at peace, and that's good enough. So they're on the new settlement. Started off a little rocky with Hunter, the commander. He was a little weary of Jade. You know how they feel about, council people. But they're okay for now. Ava and Jade adore each other. They've bonded over nanotechnology, finding ways to diffuse it. So they're really cool. Jade teaches everyone self-defense, combat, and everyone loves her. It still makes her a little weird, all the attention she gets, but she's getting better and better with it. Griff has something going on. They don't know what it is. He's very distant. He does stay near to the settlement, but he stays to himself. He leaves in the morning, doesn't come back until night. So something's going on with him, but we don't know. But Jade and Riker, they are happy. They are sharing their lives together. And that is how Tormented ends. So the last book in the series is called Tamed. And that is going to be Griff's story. And so we're going to dive into that one next week. I like this. I just love this series. I really do. I really love this. Let me know what you guys think. Drop down in the comments and let me know. Make sure you like and subscribe. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have a link that'll be placed in the description section where you can purchase some. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.